Wow. Hey. I keep saying hey. Welcome. This is Sam in Real Love Guitars workshop. And I'm coming to you on this Sony action camera thing, which is different from the normal thing I use. So partly because it's working off its own microphone at the moment, so the sound won't be as good as normal, so forgive that. Sorry, I'm getting too close for comfort. Anyway, the reason I'm doing this handheld, but it's by way of a test, so this first bit may not look as good or sound as good as usual, but it won't go on forever. That's the main thing. But really, I just wanted to kick off by introducing you to Freddy's JV Squier, Japanese Squier Strat. So side by side, here we have mine. This is mine's a little bit dusty, but I play it. This is made in 1982 in Japan. I bought it in March 1983. So yeah, it's all original. Well, not all original. There's a couple of bits changed, but yeah, bought 1983 in March, and I've owned it ever since. And it is a lovely old guitar. Over the years, I got bored with it. Partly because you do, I guess you do when you only play one kind of guitar, maybe, and it's a single coil, and maybe you want to experience something different, something more interesting. Anyway, but one of the reasons, the other reason I got, I think, a bit bored with it is because, unbeknownst to me, the capacitors inside had died, and so there was really no tone. And maybe the wiring had died, I don't know, but there was no. The tone was awful. I mean, but I didn't notice because it was so slow. You've got 33 years for the tone to go off. Anyway, came a point about it, I suppose last year sometime, when I was well into setting up guitars. I thought, well, it's time to give this whole thing a go. So I refretted it with jumbo wire, which is obviously different from how it was. It was fairly medium, thin-ish side of medium previously, but I refretted with jumbo. And it's beautiful to play, and also at the same time I put who was it? Was it Axe Tech? I think so, Axe Tech Jimi Hendrix wiring kit into it, and that just totally transformed the tone and, you know, brought it alive again. And basically demonstrates that the original pickups in there are just superb. So I'm really pleased with it now. It's got a few war wounds, been around the world a bit, but there's nothing seriously damaged about it. It's a 1.5 sort of 15,000 series, or 15,000 number, which is early on in the series. Now, they didn't really go much beyond 1983, or I think that was about it. So all of these guitars are a similar age. They all came with, well, this particular kind came with these fantastic vintage style tuners. Have never given me any problems since day one. I think in the past I might have put some oil in there somewhere, some graphite. No, I can't remember what it was, but put some oil in there, but I've never touched it since. They originally came with, mine came with white plastic, and I put black stuff on later on. I also have on mine, I engraved my name down here. I don't know how well it can show this. This has got quite a good close-up range. It says Sam Deeks 1983 engraved on there. It's an original, but anyway, I think these all rusted up like they always do, and certainly like they have on Freddy's. So I replaced mine with Fender stamped ones, but they're not original. But nonetheless, it is a lovely playing guitar. When I refretted it, I also surfaced the fingerboard. Slightly re-radiused it and tidied it up. So I love how it plays. It's got a couple of little repairs here which are filled with cracked looking lacquer, but hey, it's all part of the character. No cracks down here on mine at all. Which brings us across to, I hope you can still hear me, just going to check the numbers. They're still rolling away on here, so it all looks good on this little unit. But it brings us across to Freddy's guitar, and this arrived yesterday all the way from Denmark. And it's a really tired old Squier JV Strat, pretty much the same looking specification all round. Very, very similar, if not identical. The logos at the top there. Squier made in Japan in tiny letters. I don't know if you can even see that, but and Freddy's guitar has a few things changed on it. So the first thing, mine has a bigger full-size steel tremolo block, and Freddy's has one, but I'm not sure this looks like it's not original with the guitar, but anyway, it's a nice heavy unit. His is a late one. It's a JV 5.3, so 53,000 and some. Dates it to, I think it was May, June 1983, so still in the same, it was manufactured just 6 months later or so than mine was made, but you can see they're very similar. The neck feels almost identical to mine, and Freddy's is, I've given it a good clean up because it was, no offence here, was and still is seeped in nicotine. This has lived in a very smoky environment, and I have to say, as an ex-smoker myself, you're really sensitive to that. And when I cleaned this up, started cleaning this yesterday, literally the cloths I was using were coming away yellow. So it's got years of kind of gigged smoky rooms, proper gigging environments. So what I know about this is I'm going to clean it up even some more. But looking at what we've got here, we've got really deep grooves in these frets. I don't know how well you can see that, but they're pretty deep grooves. We've got some wear here where it corrodes after the finger sweat gets in there and just sort of dissolves away the fingerboard, so you get this kind of sand dune effect in there, and it's not too bad, but it looks a bit worn out. As we get down, the grooves here sort of lessen out, but what we also get then is a kind of sharp edge to these frets. It's like they've either been scraped or filed flat at some time, but they're almost sharp edged. Maybe they've been worn flat from so much playing. Who knows? Anyway, I looked at this. Oh, sorry, just to continue. We've got a non-original pickguard here, which doesn't fit at all. So we can tidy this up, but it also doesn't sit flat down around the edges, which is a shame. I don't think it's a great looking pickguard anyway, but we've got to work to a budget on this. So I think Freddy said these are Fender USA pickups of some kind. They're not staggered poles, which I have on mine, which were the original Squier Japan ones. So don't know how good or bad these will sound. He says it's Fender, so it's from a Fender, a USA Fender of some kind, I think. And then what we've got down here is a bridge with the saddles are so worn away. They're kind of unsavable basically, so they've got to come off and we've got to replace those. So the electrics, I think, should, if it's anything like mine, should really benefit from a complete new wiring, or certainly a drop-in of the pots and capacitors, a new set, and I'd be happy to go with the same one that I put in mine, because it was such a fantastic improvement for the 49 quid it cost me. But of course all of this comes down to budget. So looking at Freddy's, the neck is beautiful, it feels as nice as mine does, and for a guitar, if you're going to put say £250 worth of investment into this old thing to make it play and sound good, then I think you might as well give the neck a new lease of life. And for me that means refretting it. So I'm going to make refretting this the heart of what we do. I'm going to take it all apart, going to clean up everything thoroughly. I'm going to replace these bits here and see. There's all kinds of weird things going on here about how the saddle is jammed against the bridge here with no spring at all underneath it. So somebody's needed to get it that far back to intonate it, it seems. Or maybe, I mean, that's what my first guess would be. Why that is, I don't really know. Could it be that the bridge is not the right bridge, or it's not fitting correctly or something? I don't know. I'm going to do some comparisons to see if I can figure it out. But anyway, take it all apart, refret this, recondition the fingerboard so it feels like brand new, clean it all up, refret it, do a really nice job on that with medium fret wire, which I've got here. I've just done a check, so this StewMac 148 medium fret wire is just about pretty close to that. We're going to refret it, clean it all up, going to take this off and explore what this needs, and then we're going to sort out this bridge to make it work. And actually, once we've done that, this guitar will be ready to play again, because there's nothing wrong essentially with that neck, and it's the tuners are great as well. It's all original tuners. So 10 minutes in. Is that 10 minutes in? Something like that. Anyway, look, this is the new thing running. I'm just going to do what I plan to do, which is Velcro it to the side of the old guitar stand. What I'm going to do once I get going and I stop this particular recording, I'm going to then do a bit with the microphone plugged directly in, because this thing has also got a mic in, and obviously I want to test out how it records on the power, with the power supply plugged in, i.e. not on batteries, also with the Tascam feeding into it, and then hopefully it will just take over, and if it looks better, that'll be great. I don't expect it to look better, but the GoPro never actually belonged to me, so sooner or later it needs to go back to Julian, who lent it to me. Okay, so there we have two wonderful classics, and I can't tell you how pleased I am to have this here and to be able to work on it. Bringing something like this back to life, as I did with mine, and giving it another 30 years of playing life, it's the greatest feeling, and I can't tell you how good it is to do this. So what I'm going to do, I'm not even going to stop this. I'm going to carry on, and I'm going to do some plugging in magic. So let's go all over the place. Sorry. Woo. Hey, you probably think if I was a decent person I would actually stop it and give you a break. But as you can see, I've got the old GoPro Velcro here. I've got the Tascam here, and it's cool having enough things to show you that the audio comes out of the Tascam line out, and it's now going to, once I set it on record, get a signal through. I'm now going to put it through, and it should override the internal mics like that, hopefully. And while I'm there, with the same door open, I'm going to plug in the power supply as well. So now we have it on power, sorry mics, power and power supply and Tascam audio. Okay, and now I can take this one off. It's going to just get in the way. So you can go over there, GoPro. Probably be, sorry, I'm going to just do one more tweak. Get this sitting out the edge there. Hopefully we're all okay. And I'm just checking this now. If this doesn't work anymore and I've lost the sound and it's all awful, I'm really sorry, but let's go. I mean, if nothing else, you can see what I'm doing right here. So this is all going to be a new view, not having tried this camera in action before, but I'm going to give it a go. So here we are, kicking off the fun part. Where's it gone? Okay, and I'm going to get my other screwdrivers out, because I want to make sure these neck screws are spot on and they don't get any damage. So I do expect to find a shim on this guitar. I think I did on mine. It's quite common, and here we go. Welcome to the world of Freddy's. I'm just getting used to this thing, so here we go. Undoings. Ooh, and then I'll take it off, and it'll just be a case of giving everything a really good clean up. I don't know how many times, if ever, this guitar has been apart. It's got such goo on it. It's really filthy. When you've stopped smoking, as I did, you know, the kind of smoke from venues and home or whatever, it really does kind of permeate everything. So I'm going to give it all a good clean up while I go. Now as I take the neck out, I'm just looking for to have a see if there are any shims in there, which there aren't. Yeah. Well, now what have we got here? Oh no, there's a tiny little shim, but it's absolutely minuscule. I don't know if you can see that. Two. There's tiny little paper shims, look, just stuck in like sticky tape, but they won't move anywhere, hopefully. So they should just stay in position. Yeah. There's a split here, quite common. So once we get this off, I'm expecting to see the little wooden bridge here will be cracked. I think in my experience, that has, what am I looking for? I'm just not even thinking straight. Quiet. Yeah, I think in my experience, it can happen when the guitar takes a head-on shunt, right? Anyway, so look, I'm going to take off the trem springs now. I'm going to take all of this apart and get it all into bits. In fact, everything's going to come off here, so I can clean the whole body off. I'll also need to unsolder these, so get the soldering iron out. Like I say, I hope you can hear this. Oh, there goes my soldering iron pads. Now, what don't I need? I don't need that. Yeah. So you know, we may encounter some grisly things as we go further into this guitar, but I think got a good feeling about it. It's all pretty much intact. So I'm going to. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, these have been pretty well screwed down as well, so it's not exactly hard-tailed, but it doesn't have much room for movement. I'm just going to do a quick measurement of the size of the plate on mine, because I don't know if you can see me doing this. Sorry. Ooh, it's all different. I hope it's all there in Sony land. Clear 0. So I'm going to measure in millimeters. And I guess what I want to know is, what is the front to back width or depth of this bridge? I'm curious about these intonation issues that this appears to have. Okay, this is, I'm getting 40 millimeters front to back. Okay, this is different. This is shorter. No wonder he's trying to go back further. That's an interesting thing. 40 millimeters front to back, and this one is less, and they're the same, basically the same guitar. So we're going to be a little bit of a challenge here. I don't want to put back a bridge that's the wrong bridge, that's going to just leave us with intonation problems at the other end. It seems a completely silly thing to do. So I'm going to take this off. Sorry. I'm going to take this off and have a really good close look at it and go hunting for a replacement. And I think, you know, it doesn't. This guitar is not original, as you can see, so this isn't going to be one of those refurbishments to back to any kind of original condition. This is making Freddy's old JV that he really loves the feel of play again, which it hasn't done for some years by the look of it. So, the basic principle is, if we need to get a good quality replacement that does the job and has the right size plate, then that's what we're going to do. And even if it's a Wilkinson or something like that, it's not important to me. I don't think it's that big a deal. Okay, so this is a nice lumpy thing, but it's one single unit, so that's why it's not playing ball with us, because Freddy, sometime in the past, either you or someone else has acquired this and thought, I'm going to stick that in my Strat, and not really perhaps being cognizant of the fact that it's too short, and as a result you've run out of intonation room on this. So it's a nice lump, but we're going to have to pay proper money to get a replacement for it. These are not the original skews. I sound like Galeazzo Fredua. Get the right skews. They're not the right screws, but again it will be because the originals have probably stripped the hole, and only something this size, which are pretty massive, only something that size will work. We may just continue with that, or just fill the holes again. So what have we got in here? Okay, we've got a bit of padding stuck in here. Oh my god, it's just falling apart. A bit of padding, which I'm not sure why it's there. There's some shielding in here, which is quite ancient, but it's certainly not, again, not what you'd expect to find in a Japanese Squier. They didn't come with shielding, let's put it that way, even though they were very nice quality guitars. That's true, and in fact I don't think I shielded mine when I did it last year, so that could be a nice little fun task to do. So I'm just going to soften this off and remove these wires. There we are. Goes in the bin, sort of thing. And while we've got the soldering iron up, I'll take the earth wire off the claw as well. Come on. Sometimes it just takes forever to warm up enough. I'm checking to see if it's switched off. Doesn't feel very hot, or doesn't appear to be very hot. Come on. Why is this not coming off? Annoying. There we go. We've got owls outside again. So yeah, I'm going to take all these, just checking with the camera, take all these off. They're a bit worn out, most of these. The end's a bit knackered. So like I say, watch out now under here. I do expect to see split timber. It's not the end of the world. It's not. Oh, that's the wrong thing. That's the pickup screw. It's not the worst thing. It's not going to stop it playing. One more there. We're also missing a screw on the switch, which is a 5-position switch. Okay. Let's see what we've got. Oh, nice little bit of shielding. Some very kind of oldie worldy material. Okay, let's see. Ooh, we got a 1. What have we got? 0.05 M. So some. I think it's the original. Yeah, the original wiring. But it's an. Yeah. No, this looks period correct. These pots do anyway. Just looking at them compared to mine. Let's compare them to mine. Oh, no, maybe not. Maybe not. I put mine onto a plate. They didn't actually come on the plate, but mine were the 250K pots, and I had a little one of these capacitors, and this one is slightly different. So maybe not. But these are nice old looking things. Wow. Okay. Well, filthy, needs a clean as well. We'll see. But it's, there we go, look, a filthy old beast. So we have this sort of vintagey style shielding, but honestly looking at it, I've got no idea whether it's continuous shielding or not, and whether it actually works. So it's one of those things that we could replace it, even though it sort of looks very 1970s, and I don't even know what it's made of, but it's an unusual kind of thing. But hey, I'm just going to take these strap buttons off as well, because they are a bit loose and they're going to probably need either oversizing or replacing in some way or other. Okay, so verdict so far is the neck is in good shape. The frets will be replaced. This is a nice fit, that's good. The neck's in good shape, the tuner's in great shape, everything about that will work. It will need a new nut. Body looks pretty good. There is a split here, as I predicted. A couple actually. This would knock off if we hit it too hard. But that's the way it goes. Not critical. Is there any movement in there? A little. I don't really want any. It's mostly hidden. In fact, if not all hidden. Yeah, it's all hidden. So I might squeeze some glue into there just to make sure. Let's just see if we're still recording. We're still recording. We're on here. Everything looks good. Yeah, I might squeeze some glue into there just to stabilise it. But this will come in for a good clean. I might, for the fun of it, I might yeah, I think I'm going to re-shield all of this, just because, I don't know, it's a lovely old thing, and I should. Okay, so I'm going to put that just off to one side, out of the way for a minute. actually the body. It's a bit lighter than mine, it feels. Let's see what we got on here. We got 127.83. So there you go. Manufactured. And that's not telling the truth. Or is that? That's 5. It's not 1. It's 5. Well, I'm going to show you up close. See if you can see this. Looks a bit like a 1, but it's a 5. 5/27/83. 27th of May, 83. Yes, I'm going to write it down. But there you go. Real history. 27th May, and that's what the statistics or the numbers online told me, that it was between May and June, somewhere between May and June, judging by the serial number. And so just looking all over the neck right now, it's in nice shape. There's absolutely no reason at all why this won't fret out really nicely. I mean, the thing is, technically there's probably enough on these frets up here to do a leveling, but why would you do that really, you know, on a guitar that's so nice, you want it to live another 30 years, you know. If we just did a leveling on this, we wouldn't be able to tidy up the board, and we'd just end up with a guitar that's technically, the frets will still be close to the end of their life, and I just think that'd be a real letdown to this guitar. So that was why I recommended to Freddy that we go the whole hog and replace the frets, because there's nothing nicer than the thought of being able to play this thing for another 30 years. That's a kind of special rejuvenation. So I'm taking these off because these are going to need a really good clean. Now I've got to be careful that I don't want to put I don't want to get tons of solvent into the mechanism, so I'm going to just need to be these come out. Hey, hang on a minute, why is that not coming out? That's interesting. Oh, is that? Oh, that one came out. That one's spread apart over its time. Interesting. Yeah, it's split. Oh shit, that's not so great. Little things we find out. Reality is, I'm not going to get that off with it in that condition. Now if it comes off, then we're going to lose that bit. Now technically we can do it. We can live without that part, so we could glue it back on. I think in fact that's what's already happened to this. It's been glued on somewhere in the past. You can see it. It's either been glued or soldered on. Okay, I'm going to take the others off and I'm going to leave this last one on, and I'm going to work around it, which isn't ideal, but we're sort of not too broke in that department, so I don't want to go overboard. But I'd like to clear the decks as much as possible in order to clean everything. But it's either been glued or brazed or something. But it's split in the past, and it's lost one side of. It looks like one of those, you know, a castle, a rook in a chess game. But it's lost one side of the little top piece. But all the rest of them come out okay. So again, I'll put them off on one side, ready for a damn good clean. Now these, they may or may not come out easily, but I will press them out. I'll put another screw back in here for a moment, just to make sure this one doesn't go anywhere for the time being. I might move it around a little bit when I come to clean up. That's a shame, but you know, 30 years of life, and it still works. Okay, we've got the old original nut here. It's all yellowed. Maybe rather than replace it with another one, I may try and I may not be successful, but I may try and prise it out and shim it just ever so slightly. This will need, it'll need to come out first of all. Can't do the board and refretting without it, but it isn't necessary to replace it. It's got a nice authentic look to it, but it depends on whether we can get it out in one piece. What we can't do is just leave it there and hope to use it, because the new frets will be tall and this thing just won't work with it. It'll be, the slots and the nut overall will be far too low, so we're going to be forced to put a new one in or replace the original. But I don't know if you can see, but look at that lovely build up of goo over the years, and of course that will immediately start to come out, but I'm going to delight you with this. Are you ready? Hope you haven't just had lunch, everybody. But bit of solvent here, and let's take away some of that historic goo, and we just wipe and wipe and wipe and wipe. Get in there, but you know, it comes away and it'll take it all away. Eventually we'll get a nice clean neck back out of it. As with down here, some build up on the edges. Not so bad actually. Taken most of the stuff off yesterday, certainly on the neck anyway. One way of getting the last of it off would be to give it a sort of scratch remover once over, and that will clean it up. Literally, it's a bit, you know, take the top layer off in the process of cleaning it, but it's got lots of years of goo in there. But like I said, it's a lovely old guitar, so every bit worth fighting for. Now, fiddly though this is, rather than dunk these in a bath, I'm making a point of just cleaning them with a damp cloth rather than drowning them in solvent, because I just really want to get the goo out without degreasing it inside, because it's obviously worked very well for all those years. So what I sometimes do, just to help it along the way, this is a little bit of a bath, but I'll do it on the sides more than anything. Just a little tiny bit of a scrub around the screw parts, and that's just to get the sort of residual stuff off. Very nice. Okay, well that's a good start. Cleaned it up. I'm going to do the front as well. I also want to get these out, and I do that by pressing them out with usually a big Allen key, and just supporting it with a block so that it can take the tap of the Allen key without any stress on the neck, or without too much stress on the neck. I'll pick myself something of a nice diameter, something like that. That's too big, sorry, too small. How's that camera work? Sorry, I haven't moved it, but hopefully you're seeing it all right. There you go. So that's about the right size, and then with the support I'll just give it a little tap, and it should come out eventually. And this I can give a proper clean, but for now I'm just going to put it out of the way. So again, it's all about just supporting it so that everything's fairly stiff, and I'm driving these things out without stressing the wood and making it bounce. So I'm going right to the edge of the pad. It's quite kind of ground in, but it will come out. Very, it's been a long time since they came out. Last one obviously will stay where it is because I can't do anything about that. Okay, so now I'm going to give this a good clean up. That is well and truly grubby as well. it'll be nice when we're done. Still plenty of goo on the fingerboard here, but I won't really bother scrubbing that too hard because it'll clean up when I radius it with the radius block. It'll be interesting to just check what the actual real live radius of this this neck is, because my experience is the older they are, the less accurate they are. I don't know if it's the kind of bend over time or sort of shrink or whatever. So it's a 7.25 radius according to this. This is the classic, and in truth it's probably a little tighter than 7.25, and I don't know if that's because of shrinkage over the years or whatever, but just looking at it, there is a tiny gap, minuscule, but yeah, it's just, I would say there's enough to say there's a fractional gap. So it's meant to be, it's meant to be a 7.25. You won't be able to see this, but it's meant to be 7.25, and to all intents and purposes it looks like that. And it's not compound, it's the same all the way down, but I can see a tiny little gap, which means it's more like 6.5 or something like that. So I've actually got a 6 one in here, which might be quite interesting to put it against it and just see what it looks like. Wherever it is, there it is. I wonder if that's going to look ridiculous. Yeah, that's sorry, no, what am I talking about? It's the opposite way, isn't it? So this is bigger, slightly bigger than 7.25, not less. This is trying to tell me it's more like 8. It's not 9.5. It's miles off that, but it's actually more. I would say it's about 7.5, which is not a problem because anyway I'm going to radius it with the radius block, but I'm going to do it to 7.25 because that's what it should be. I can find where my 7.25 is. It's not that one, and it's got to be that one because that's the only one left. Yeah, and I haven't got any sandpaper on it. But what I'll do is I'll start off with some fairly heavy stuff once I've pulled these frets, and off we go. But yeah, all told, that's going to come out very nicely. Made in Japan. Okay, so let me get those out of the way for a minute, and I'll probably put this on hold for now because what am I going to do? Now the stuff you'll want to see is you probably want mist and all the air's blowing out. You probably want to see the bit where I pull the frets out, because that's the scary fun part. So I will do that, but for now I'm just going to switch out the neck and hang it up for a minute, safely out of the way. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get my cleaning goo, and I'm just going to gently, seem to be missing one, a bit short on this stuff now. I'm just going to get a little bit of this polishing stuff, and I'm just going to see how much nicer this will be with a bit of a clean up. So I'm just going to go on this patch here. Let's just go a little bit up in the strip and see what we get. How much we get? Probably expect a bit of more, a few more microns of goo coming off the surface here, but just having a little go to see how it freshens up, because this is I suppose the real way to freshen it up is to take the top layer off as a very fine polish. And you can get a lot of work done with very little of this material, which is why I like it. Just having a quick clean up. So I don't know how well you can see that, but that little spot there has come up nice. You know, it's still got some embedded scratches in it, but it's starting to shine up nicely. So the whole of this will do very nicely, and there's a bit of lacquer missing there. I'm not going to try and replace it or anything. It's sort of it's historic. There's lots of the lacquer going funny around here, I don't know, I never quite worked out whether these were nitro or polyurethane, but the back there looks like it's quite what people say nitro looks like, but hey, for all I know it's probably polyurethane. Anyway, so just as a little tester, that will clean up nicely. I can certainly get rid of some more of this goo with my solvent for the time being. So like I said, the main things that I know now are I'm going to try and put some glue into this gap, this crack here, just hopefully stop it doing anything else, although it's not gonna really fix it, but it might just stabilize it a bit more. And then I'm going to have a look online for the correct bridge, or a replacement bridge that will do the job, and for that I'll probably need to take a lot of measurements off my own, because the holes, the tremolo holes, or the bridge holes, are going to be all in the same place, and certainly are on this bridge that Freddy had on there. But the question is can we duplicate it in something, a replacement? Can we find one that will do the job? Because like I said, I don't want to put that bridge back on when it's patently too short, and it's just going to create intonation problems again. That'll be a real pity, because that's what stops the guitar playing well. And if one of the things I've been writing about in this ebook that I've been working on is, you know, just standing back and saying, look, what are the things that really make a guitar good to play or not good to play? And number one is the ability for it to play in tune, and so the intonation here is critical. If this is wrong from the start, then there's the whole of the guitar purpose and of the guitar is sort of gone, and it just doesn't make any sense. Do I keep this, or it's not completely thorough all the way through, but I don't know. It's sort of vintagey. I quite like the old feel of it. Maybe I'll just put a bit extra in here and see what happens. I like it. It has got a nice vintage feel, so there is a little bit of a few bits here that could be finished off. And then there's the hole that comes through there, which we could go around and complete. Okay, it's very old stuff though, but yeah, lovely old thing. Clean up very well though, but it is filthy. I mean, that yellow staining is something else. When I saw this in the pictures, I thought that there was a huge, sorry, on the front, I thought there was a huge dent out of here, but it turned out to be a part of a sticker that was just still there. So anyway, I just want to say a quick hello to Kevin and Gloria, who came around tonight to pick up a guitar, and Kevin was telling me how he'd been watching these videos, so welcome to the shed. He didn't get to meet Morris tonight, unfortunately, and Morris was the only one who was absent, but Morris's mum and sister were around, so he got to meet some of the family, but not all of them. Anyway, right. Okay, so I'm going to stop at this point and break the video. The next thing I will do is I will take the frets off, and I will do the action, sorry, not the action, I'll take the nut off and the frets off, and then I will be taking the re-thingying the board. That's the word I'm looking for. Reprofiling. Yeah, it would be nice if I can get that off. We shall see. Right. Actually, the soldering iron's still on, so why don't we do that while it's still on? Might as well strike while the iron is hot. What do they say? Is that Yeah, that's actually the first time I think in my whole life that that expression has ever actually meant something. Strike while the iron's hot. Dun dun dun! There it is, it's hot and we're striking. My God, isn't language amazing? Right, so I'm just going to get a clamp and I'm going to gently, I said gently, where am I going to start from? I'm going to gently clamp down the neck onto here. Just I don't need it to be too tight, I just want it so it's not going anywhere. And I've got, for this job, I've got a couple of little things here, and they are fret protectors for when you're pulling the fret out, and they're not the easiest things in the world to use because they don't kind of do exactly what you think they do. You have to use them, you have to get the fret lifted first, and then you can begin to slide them under, and then you can lift them, slide them. And the idea of this is to hold back and prevent there being chips. Hey now, listen, I've got to try to do some tests while I'm here. Don't let me get away without doing some tests. So one of the tests is how close up can we reasonably get, and I'm going to now test that. I measured 15 centimeters, which if it's true will make a close-up much more interesting than we've ever managed to get before with the old GoPro. So I'm taking that cable right the way around the back. Now the issue here, now I've got myself in a position where I can hardly move. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use this pair of fret pulling pliers to get myself a bite on the end of the fret. But before I do that, I'm just going to gently heat up the fret, or warm up the glue, and actually in this case all the other stuff in that lovely stew under there. Now you can't quite see this because I'm now getting I sort of got the bite going underneath the edge, or at the edge there, and as I do it I'm just basically starting to, this is the worst piece of cam work, I'm so sorry, I'm really apologetic. Let me move all the parts out of the damn way and push you around here. Surely that's got to be better. Okay. So the trouble I've got with using these is, I'll show you now. Let's say I get this warmed up, and you can see it's smoking a bit because of all the grease that's under there. And I just start now to bite into this. Now the idea about these is that this is supposed to go under here, like you can see it does, and help me lift these without pulling any more stuff. Now my problem is I need to put this soldering iron down somewhere, and right now there is no somewhere for it to go. No, that's still not going to work. But let's try. Sorry, this is working with, I've not got as many hands as I'd like. So, okay, so let's continue to use this thing. So now I'm sort of working back to front. The idea is I want to pull this out, pull this thread by clipping, and I want to prevent, as I do it, prevent any chips from coming up. So I'm kind of biting into the fret so it lifts up, and there's lots of crud and goo, and I'm just rocking slightly with the pliers so that the fret's beginning to lift out, and as I'm doing it I'm also trying to push this protector under a little bit further. And actually, to be honest, I don't quite go with it. I think I'd probably get a better result if I just carried on without it. And part of the reason for that is, if you remember, I'm also going to I'm going to resurface this board anyway, so the little chips that come out aren't critical. But if you want to be the most careful you can be, that's what you do. I'll show you the result of doing it without that. One of the challenges right now, if you're doing this, is you've got to make sure that your left hand, whichever hand's holding the soldering iron, is steady enough so that you don't end up slipping off and making a burn in in the wood. Again, in my case, it's not such a big deal because since I'm going to resurface the board, I can afford a slip. And you know, hey, you don't really want to make slips like that, but not the end of the world. So here I have the fret taken out. Again, no big chips or anything come out with it. So, you know, given I'm resurfacing, that's really not a problem. So you can just basically move right on. So we're as close as we can probably get. Again, close up, but not with a lot of room. So probably, is that enough room to work? Just about. Okay, but I'd be interested to see whether this is usable video or not, and like I said, forgive me if it isn't. So the secret of doing this is getting that first little bite at the edge without damaging the edge of the fingerboard too much. Sometimes when the fret is either very low, i.e. it's been worn down thoroughly over the years, if it's very low, it doesn't present you with anything to bite into with these pliers, and as a result sometimes you have to kind of dig in really quite hard at this end, and the result of that can often be that you get a little sort of scar on the end there. Kind of unavoidable if that's how deeply flattened and worn out your frets are. This one isn't so bad. There's enough material to get that first bite going without having to dig into the very end of it. Now this is trying to lift a little chip down here. I can see it, and you'll often spot it when it's trying to happen. You know, if you are in that situation and you see a little chip lifting up, you might want to reintroduce your chip guard, if you like. But again, it's that same thing. You've still got to get underneath this fret, and then you know you've got to move the chip guard as well as move along, and the whole thing gets kind of a big handful. You know, you may just find that it's saving you from pulling anything up, but I don't think we're in that zone anyway at the moment. Particularly, as I say, because I'm going to resurface the board. So, without even getting all hysterical about it, Freddy, we've gone clearly past the point of no return. There's no turning back. We are rotating off the runway now. Hey, and you can hear the owls. So I'm just going to move the whole arrangement a bit further down now, because I'm doing all right. I'm steaming along. Again, it doesn't have to be. I don't want to over clamp it. I just want to hold it in place so it's pretty much where I want it, and along we go. You don't want to burn the nut slot, so you don't need the soldering iron to be on there for too long, and you just want to move it along behind, a little way behind your pliers, so that you're just warming up, but the heat will transfer all the way along the fret pretty well anyway, and it doesn't take more than a couple of seconds before you'll start seeing the sort of finger oils starting to burn and bubble, or certainly bubble. Sorry about this. No matter where I'm putting the camera at this point in time, it doesn't really stop my hand getting in the way, so it's not the best camera shot in the world. Unless, of course, I go right back to there, in which case it's all a little bit better. I was very intrigued by this. God, I've forgotten that already. What it's called? ASMR. ASMR. I can't tell you what it stands for. But you know when somebody introduces you to something online and you go, I didn't believe there was a thing called that, and then you didn't believe, you find out that there are whole billions of people around the world who are into that thing, and then before you know it, you realise there's thousands of videos and a whole market exists to serve people who have that thing. And this thing, ASMR or whatever, is really interesting. It's supposedly a kind of pleasurable nervous stimulation brought about by people doing seemingly repetitive type things, and particularly around sort of small movements and particular sounds, I don't know, anyway, and there's apparently what appears to be a kind of tone of voice, but for most people, or most of the videos I've seen, that tone of voice is whispering, which isn't something I don't think I'm doing, but anyway. So if my videos have the same sort of intensely focused kind of small repetitive sounds like doing this kind of thing, if you can get a tingle down your spine and get yourself into a nice sort of hypnotic, pleasurable trance or state, courtesy of the nibbling of a fret pulling pliers on an old Squier Japanese fingerboard, then fill your boots, as they say. I never meant it to be that way, but it was very interesting. We watched some videos, and there seemed to be these kind of weird girls up close to the lens doing things with textures and things that make crunchy, scrunchy noises and whispering a lot with the American accent. And then it immediately made me think of old Whispering Bob Harris. So those of you around about my age will remember, and maybe starts to explain why Whispering Bob Harris was such a kind of, I don't know, why he was so popular and why he had a sort of an effect on you when you listened to him late at night when he introduced bands in the old grey whistle test, because he was practically whispering the whole time. Anyway, yeah, check it out, ASMR. It could be something else, but one of those things you go, well, serves me right for asking, as you fall into this rabbit hole of a whole kind of world of stuff you just couldn't even believe existed. Thankfully not too disturbing or nothing too offensive, but the world of the internet, you would never have believed it. Anyway, so I'm going to defang this beastie tonight. I may, while we're here, I may bend some fresh wire ready. I may cut it ready and set it up as a set, so that sometime tomorrow I can start putting back or refret it. Much easier to refret a neck like this. It's a pleasure, this kind of neck. First of all, it's not got the not got any binding. Secondly, I suppose the first thing about it is that it's old and a bit worn, so that re-radiusing it will just make it feel wonderful, and it'll bring out the grain, and everything will just feel superb and new. So you know, it has a great payoff just from the sort of how much it refreshes it. But it's also easier because it's a simple non-compound radius. It's not bound around the edges with plastic, so I don't have to cut overhangs for the frets. It's not a hard thing to do, but you know, it just takes a bit more time. It also is good because the frets weren't covered either. They weren't ashamed to show the ends of the frets in these on these necks. So again, we just have to kind of cut them and bevel them nicely and make sure they're not sharp. So it's a straightforward job, and it's just hugely rewarding to do it for all the obvious reasons, probably ASMR reasons as well. But, it's much more, the refretting part isn't anywhere near as soothing as the fret removal part, which we've just done. So there we go. That was my little close-up. I may check and see if you can see this. So what you get once you've de-fretted it is you get as I say, these weren't covered up, they weren't filled in, these end slots. So the slots run right to the end and you can see them, which is great. It makes it much easier to clean these out actually. In fact, you could clean them out with a saw or a string nut file or something like that. I have actually got a fret saw, but Mark's borrowing it at the moment, so The ends were covered by a thin layer of lacquer, but it tends to wear out over the years anyway, and we can put some more on there to cover them up if we want to, but it's not the most important thing. You get the frets, so the frets come out, and you can see the sort of, you can see where the just underneath the head of the fret, or the crown of the fret, there's untouched wood. So, and it's a mix. It stands proud basically, and it's a mixture of kind of goo and the fact that it hasn't been worn away, where everything else either side of it has been worn. So you kind of got a slightly scalloping thing going on there, but it's not that, or scalloping. It's not that bad, but you can feel it. If I wasn't going to re-radius the board, you can do something like you can get rid of that crud by taking a sort of homemade tool. Actually, I've got a better one, but it's in the house at the moment. I think it's in the house. Yeah, it was made from a piece of fret wire, and it's a little thin one that actually is thinner than the width of this, so you can just put it in there and you can kind of just adjust it to give you, pull it slightly tight, and what you can do is you just go up and down over that spot there, and it will, and you don't have to do it so lightly, but you can just run it up and down, and it will just take away the proud stuff, and that really is a whole load of sort of goo. And of course we'll still clean that out with a blade or something if I can find one, you know, and blow the dust out. But now that, instead of kind of riding up over these crusts, this is now pretty much level with the rest. And it would actually, I'd probably be smart to do it anyway before I radius, because otherwise I'll sort of be riding across the top of those things. Anyway, but it'll ruin this little file because it's pretty poisonous clag. I mean, it's finger grease and God knows what else. But I'm just, as I say, I'm just going to use it to bring down the sort of crest of these bits before I do the full radiusing thing. Might as well give it a sort of an even start-up point. So that's a simple thing you can do. As I say, the one I made with a piece of fret wire was just thin enough so you could use it on here without it bleeding over the edge, which means if you weren't going to re-radius, you could still clean up this stuff and hide the sandpapered bit underneath your fresh fret that goes on. So it's quite a nice thing to have a really thin file to do that job, because you can get a nice smooth off here without any sort of, without the risk of the overhang of this sandpaper marks, if you like. Now we don't mind because we're going to kind of do quite a lot more sanding over here than this, so this is just kind of taking some of the initial crud away, and it's going to ruin this piece of paper by the looks of it. But you know, this, for me, this is like heaven, you know, just to be able to slowly and contemplatively clean up this old neck, and you know, by tomorrow afternoon when I've refretted it and I've beveled off the frets, and you know, we've got a new set sitting there waiting to have a first pass fret level before we put the guitar anywhere near back on the body, which won't come for a while yet because we've got to source the different parts we need to make it play right. But you know, once those frets are back on and have had the first sort of basic level, you can really start to feel it's going to play well for its next 30 years out there in Denmark. And all I hope is it doesn't outlive its owner, because that's what my guitar's getting to, that sort of, sorry, I'm getting to that sort of age where, having refretted my Squier, in truth, by the time it stops playing I'll have probably passed it on to someone, which is like, wow, scary. This fret job is going to outlive you, Freddy, or me. But hey, that's immortality. So this is probably the kind of activity that's going to set all you ASMR people off into raptures. Look at that. So what's really, really critical if you're refretting is, once you've taken frets out and maybe done this bit and just taken away the crunchy crud, and then you might find yourself giving the slot a bit of a clean out. What's really important is for this next bit, or when you come to refret it, the slots have to be clear. If they're not clear, the danger is that the frets will sort of jam halfway down and they'll sit proud, and then you'll have one monstrously high fret and you'll be really condemned to some pretty ferocious fret leveling. Or, you know, if it's very obvious, you have to pull the fret out of the series, clean out the slot and start again. So taking the time to get the slots right first is really a smart move. One of the things I often do is a really simple test, but if you just need to know, if you can see this, if you need to know, have you got the depth you need in order to put a new fret tang into there, is you can just stick your thing in, stick your blade in, put a level on it against it like that, and then you can lift it out and you can see actually the physical depth that you've got available to you. Now I can tell you, looking at my new fret wire, this is the old fret wire, but check the new fret wire, that's even if we line it up to where it sits on the fret, that's twice as much depth as we need for the new fret wire. So it's really important that you're comfortable that you've got enough depth for the tang to go in. Here we have a whole set of tinkling frets. Now this is the kind of noise, I'm going to ASMR everybody now. This is the noise that people would like in ASMR land. It's the sound of some frets tinkling. Lovely. Okay, I'm going to bin them. I was just looking, there was a tiny weeny chip that came out here that I can't find. This is a little piece of wood. What you also get sometimes is some of the old lacquer that cracks just with age, but that's minuscule. Right, I'm going to throw these away. Now the fun part is trying to remove the nut, and I've got a tool. This is Chris's tool here. I'm not sure how this. One of the things I've got to say about this is, if you're going to do this, remove nuts, you've got to be very careful. Chris's tool he's designed it ideally so it'll help break the seal. Okay, so I'm just going to give it a couple of taps here to hopefully break the glue seal, and I'm going to give it a couple of little taps this way, but I'm going to hopefully do them very gently, because this piece of wood here isn't very strong and it's all too easy to end up chipping a piece off here, and I've done that more than a few times. It's just the way it is. I've got a little screwdriver here. I'm going to have a go at just gently levering this out, and thankfully it's playing ball, so I'm going to just go all the way down there. That's a very nice job, thank you. So I'm confident once I've cleaned that up, I'm going to be able to just put that back in with a shim, and we're going to be able to reuse the original nut, which is really nice. So I'm just going to drop that into the box over there. I'm also going to unplug the soldering iron before anything else melts. No, that's not the soldering iron, is it? Sorry. Okay, so the good thing, thank you Chris for your wonderful nut remover. It worked when I most needed it. I have used it before on another one and it didn't work, but that wasn't probably your fault, it's probably my fault. So here we have the neck now with the frets out, the surface crud removed, and it's ready for a re-profiling and hopefully to remove this concavities or depressions here. The thing about this neck is really important to keep in mind when we do this is that these Squiers didn't have a lot of fretboard. There's not a lot of rosewood on here, and certainly compared to some guitars I've seen in the past, some modern Strat copies, there's a lot more rosewood, so you've got a lot more room to take stuff down. We don't want to make this too thin, and we've got to just be cautious and keep our eye all the time on, you know, how much rosewood is left on here. And so it's going to be a kind of a careful compromise. Luckily, these holes here, or dents, aren't so deep. But as soon as we start sanding it, we'll see how much more we've got to go. Critical to this, before we begin this process, to make sure this neck is as flat as it can possibly be. Because it hasn't got frets, you can measure it with any kind of straight edge you like. I'll bring my old aluminium one from over here. But yeah, you want to make sure before you do any. What you don't want to do, I mean, you could start sanding it now, but what you don't want to do is end up with kind of cutting out too much in the middle. So I would just get myself a straight edge and just see whether we've got a straight board. And actually we don't, it's slightly convex. So to adjust that, we're going to need to use a screwdriver. The adjustment end on these is down the heel end, and let's have a think what we're going to do. I always have to think this out mentally. So it's got some convexity, and I have a feeling we need to really slack it and let it sort of flatten out. And that's actually pretty much done it. We don't want any back bow in it. That's the important thing. So I'm quite happy with that. Just that piece of tension on that has taken care of it. While I've got the neck in this position, by the way, I'm just going to take a couple of pictures for Facebook, just to show the date on it, because that's always an interesting thing. 27/5/83, and here it is without its frets, ready to be re-radiused, and there it is being filmed by the new Sony arrangement. Okay, alright, well, given what time is it now? It's 9:15. I'm not going to start doing any more on it tonight. I'm going to park it for now and just leave it be. But yeah, looking forward to that. There's our 7.25. I'm going to get some pretty rough sandpaper to begin with. What I'm also going to do, I'm going to, again, just lock down this end when it comes to it. I'm going to put a little piece of foam support under here, because what I don't want to happen, I don't want the neck bending in the middle, so I'm going to just find a way of just supporting it, probably a little piece of foam, just the edge of it, just enough. It's unlikely, because I'm not going to put huge pressure, but I want to do everything I can to make sure this stays as flat as it possibly can while I'm doing this. That's probably not too bad there, actually. So yeah, we'll put some sandpaper on the underside of here. In fact, I'll put some self-adhesive stuff on, but I'll start with a free piece of heavy-duty stuff. And my experience of doing this is that it's quite difficult to get a precise radius, even doing this. There's so much room for movement, and if you think about it, if you get that, the radius is the same all the way across, but if you get it slightly off the line, if you think about it, if we even go slightly off centre that way or that way, you kind of overcut the radius just slightly. So you could, in some ways, you could build a jig to do this, or a rig or something, which would keep the two things exactly straight. But I've been pretty successful just using a finger as a guide down here, and you sort of, once you get it in the right place, you kind of know where you're going. But there are ways, if you want to experiment, you could kind of ensure that these things are fitted, and it's parallel to. You've got to have everything parallel to the centre line. That's the important bit. And you can check the centre line obviously by going down through these fret markers. And that gives you centre line. So if you're going to build a jig, you're running parallel relative to that. But obviously far enough over so that it stays in one place. But yeah, that's something for a future day anyway. Okay, look, I'm going to stop blethering away, and hopefully this has recorded everything. It says it's got 1:41. Wow. 1 hour 14 it's telling me in its little display. New camera, new setup. Hopefully it worked. Anyway, I'll see you tomorrow when I come back to Freddy's lovely old JV Squier. So far everything's going really well. Looking forward to refretting this with some nice new wire. Radius to 7.25. I'm going to try and just cut it slightly over that to make sure that it grips nicely. I want it under that little extra bit of tension, but we'll see. Anyway, I'll speak to you later. Well, I'm still getting used to this Sony camera, but I like it. I actually think it does everything a little bit better than the GoPro. It doesn't bend as much. Maybe it can, maybe there's another setting, but anyway, the point being, it currently seems to capture everything very nicely and does close-ups a lot better, so very pleased with that. Quick update then. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to refret this. Well, actually I'm going to radius it first. So I've got a few things ready. I've got some fret wire. I've got a bending machine up on the roof up there, which I've just set. I've done a couple of tests and then I end up setting it to the correct radius. In fact, this is just a bit, actually it's dead on 7.25. So I've got another one to do in a minute. I've got my 7.25 radius block with some 220 grit sandpaper on for the fine tuning. I've got my pile of spare wire in case I need it. I've also got my fret cutters there. But actually I'm sort of jumping the gun a bit, because before I do any of those fretty things, I forgot, of course, I've got to do the thing, you know, the sanding thing. And I was definitely sort of thinking about this, making a jig arrangement yesterday, and I just wonder if it's worth doing. It's something I do quite often, so to do it properly I'd need to lock the neck in place, and then I'd be wanting to run the radius block down the side of it. So it'd be quite difficult, or not quite difficult, there'd be several layers of construction required for this thing. So I will probably look at it, but it's not proved to be absolutely necessary up till now. But I think I will look at this as a definite thing to have a go at. Now I'm just supporting this bit here, the headstock. I'm just going to gently again clamp it down, very gently. I'm just using a little bit of pressure just to hold it in place. I don't want to end up with loads of bend on anything, but I do want to be able to move the, run the thing up and down. Of course, this is now in my way. Let me just move this along some more. So I'm going to support this right down here. Okay, that's quite good. It's just somewhere that's stopping it moving, and I can get to grips with it. So the start point is I'm just going to use this 60 grit. It's quite chunky, and I'm going to put it over the 220 stuff, and it's pretty harsh, so all I'm doing is running it down here, and I'm going to cut away at the old grotty old fingerboard, and I want to start pushing from both ends equally and keep it nice and straight. And you can see straight away it's it's already cutting this nice and cleanly, and of course there are some dents down here that you'll see, which is what we'd expect. That's where the wear and tear is. So sorry about the noise of this. So it's a case of also this will clog up quite quickly with rosewood, so you have to give it a bit of a clean, and a toothbrush is actually quite a good way of doing it to get most of the clag out of there, and if not, fingernail or even a blade will do it. Just want to keep unclagging it wherever possible, and it's just a case of I'm trying to make sure this is dead on the centre line as close as possible. I want to do it all the way along, so we've got an equal amount of covering. And I'm making a nice little pile of rosewood at the end here, at either end. And as I say, you can really see the leftover stuff, and we're going to need to keep going to get down to that. That's the wear, you can see. But once we do, everything else will be a beautiful finish. So it's kind of worth doing. But I want to be doing the same amount all the way. I don't want to end up with this nut end worn down and the rest not. I'm using this heavy gauge sandpaper, obviously, to do the heavy work. I'm going to want to do some finer work afterwards, but it's getting us down there. And while I'm doing it, I just want to take a close look at what's happening. Make sure we're getting an even thing all the way along. Also, just want to pad out that section there a little bit. I've got a nice little piece of foam that will allow me to do it, just to kind of offset the bend on this a little bit. I don't want to cut down the middle more than the end. So just keeping an eye on it, see how we get on. Okay, nice. By the look of this, the fingerboard is actually a little thicker anyway at the nut end, so just for evenness sake we can probably spend a little more time on here, get this down to the level we're looking for. Yeah, that's okay. And all of this will vacuum off and blow off nicely. And you can see well, I don't know if you can, but yeah, you probably can see the pitted area now is still showing through quite clearly, but it won't be long before we get down to that. And then it'll be a case of starting to clean it up. Sorry about this noise for a minute. Hold your ears. Like being at the dentist. Sorry. Old Henry there. I think that's the first time you've seen Henry in action. That's his little electrical cotton socks. So I'm just going to spend a bit of time on this end alone. And I'm just making sure that the gap is the same as I'm doing this. It won't be too long before we're there. It's looking all right. Again, still a little bit of wear there, but it will not be long before we're down to the bottom of that trench, and that's because this wasn't that bad in the first place. Rather a bit like mine hadn't got much wear, and doing this to mine just give it that new fresh feel. And there's just almost a tiny little bit left. Having spoken to Freddy on Facebook, he's opted for a black pickguard to go on here. A bit like mine. I think it's a much nicer colour. If you're going to replace it, it works with that sunburst much better, I think, than the white one. So I'm going to get an 11-hole scratch plate for this. May require slightly modifying the holes. That's just one of the downsides of this whole thing. When somebody's sort of messed around with the pick guards or scratch plates that are already there, and sometimes you've got to do modifications to make them fit. But to me it's much more important. Look, we need some rosewood. Look, it's much more important, I think, to get a pickguard that fits and doesn't buckle than worrying about whether underneath it there are some extra drilled and filled holes, to be honest. And that's the problem with replacing with the incorrect pickguard, is you end up with buckling, and it's just horrible. Okay, it's all looking, it's all still nice and flat at the moment. Looks good. I'm going to keep going until we're at the bottom of these little troughs. And there you can see I'm keeping the rosewood dust. It's quite handy for if and when you have any fills you need to do later on. We're almost there, still a little bit of a dent. Sometimes, depending on how things go, you might have to compromise and sort of stop if you think it's going to go too thin to carry on. At the moment it's looking okay. Ouch, that's a blade, Samuel, remember. Okay, so I've got lots of wonderful rosewood, Japanese rosewood, wherever that comes from, hey. But lots of it for a future use, and we're hopefully getting a nice 7.25 radius on here. So you can see it doesn't take that long to redo the radius, or redo the wood, the rosewood. And you know, what we of course want is to ideally get this last bit out. Just as I say, just making sure there is enough. I think there is enough. It's not got to any marginal lengths. So a little bit more. There's a little bit of wear there as well. It'll come out. I think just all that happens is once I've done the main sort of cut, then I'm going to go over it with the 220 and hope to just smooth it off a little bit. We're so close. But I am getting a nice little collection of rosewood here to replenish my supplies. Now for this guitar we've agreed what's going to happen to it, so I'll tell you now. I'm going to refret it, obviously clear up this board, refret the guitar, and then it's going to get a new pickguard, a new bridge, because the bridge that's currently on it is without a doubt too short, and it's causing intonation problems that we can't really fix in any other way other than replacing it. So replacing the bridge with actually it's an Axe Tech one I found. It's quite hard to find the right bridge when you're doing this kind of thing. You've got to go by exact measurements, and actually not a lot of suppliers give you all the exact measurements. They often say things like, you know, classic Fender replacement bridge, but they don't tell you exactly what the measurement is, so you just can't afford the risk, really. So I've had to find one that specifies the nearest I can get to the replacement, and I think it will work. I can just hope. There is no direct, I couldn't find any direct absolute replacement, so we're going for as close as possible, but it should be, I'm hoping it's a drop-in. Anyway, so that's going to replace the the bridge and the saddles all in one go, which will be a nice easy, hopefully a nice easy drop in. And then once that's done, I'm also ordering for Freddy a I think it's an Axtec, again Axtec Jimi Hendrix wiring kit, which, having put one on mine, my same, you know, identical JV Squier, I think it made it play beautifully. It was a really nice modification to replace the worn out tone capacitors. So that's the plan, and they're not exactly cheap, but they are a really nice, ready, wired up way of doing it. And in a way, what it saves, what you pay for in the, obviously, you know, you pay over and above the component prices, but you're saving yourself the hassle of having to wire it. So you're getting the kind of ready-made unit. Okay, so I'm just looking down here at this, and it's looking good. I could still take more, the thickness wise, it's just still a tiny bit thicker at this end, so I've got a little bit more leeway to go to get rid of this the dent. And since we're here, we might as well get it all off, so we are down to a nice fresh fingerboard. The only reason I'd ever leave any of the wear in is if it's you know, if you're on marginal on thickness, but this is pretty well supplied with rosewood, so okay, I will stop there. There's just a hint of the wear remaining there, but I've got my little supply of stuff for another day. Put it in my box of OCD. Knock off the heating a little bit because we're in boiling mode, and let's have a good look at what we've now got. Oops. And I'll get the Hoover up in a minute. Okay. All looking good. All being well. We are pretty much exactly on 7.25. In fact, if anything, it's about 7.5, which is where we came from. That's okay. So what I'm going to do now is just by hand, I'm just going to do a lighter going over with 220. Just basically take some of the roughness out of that paper. And just being careful to make it as smooth and as clean as possible. We'll have some left over. And actually, you know, it's entirely feasible to carry on going and make it even shinier and shinier. But the thing with a rosewood on a guitar like this is it's going to be oiled, and I don't think it feels great being completely shined off. You know, this is currently 220. I might put a piece of 600 over it, which is here, to take it one layer further down. But that's really as fine as I'm going to go. In the past I have done it with micro mesh papers, but as I say, there's no real reason you want to end up with it shining like some sort of mirror at this point. It's wood, and you want to be able to feel a bit of the texture of the wood. Okay, so I'll get the Hoover on this bit. Now what I will do while I'm here is I'm going to just round off the edges, because doing this sharpens the edge of the board a bit too much, and it it can be a little bit sharp to the finger. I'm just going to round it off a tad, just so that it isn't knife edge on both sides. Sorry, probably looking at the wrong thing. Here we go. Right, just to round it off and make sure it's still quite sharp and precise, but it just feels nice and smooth now. Right, bit of hoover. Clean this up. So what I won't do is I won't put that on the board because that'll just leave an imprint. What I will do is use the trusty spray can and breathe it all in, as opposed to putting it in the vacuum cleaner. Hurrah! Right. There we have it. Re-radius, resurfaced, and ready to receive its fresh frets. Now I'm not going to oil it or do anything such as that right now, because that's pretty good. That's nicely done. Because I'll oil later. Right now I need the fingerboard not to be oily, because otherwise glue won't stick to it, nothing will stick to it. What I want to know, do my double check, is make sure I've still got enough depth here for the thing. What do you call that thing? What is that thing? Fret tang, I suppose. Yeah, to go in. So I'm just going to press this against there, and again I can see just very crudely I've got loads of room, loads of depth in those slots, which is great. So here's the fun bit. I don't know if you can see this. It's all fun from here. I'm going to point you up there into my messy workshop. Here I have my fret wire bender thing, the Bendinator, Canadian device made of stainless steel. And it's as simple as that. Ta-da! It's a great machine. Cost a lot of money, but why not? And you can get cheaper variants, but this one just looks the biz because it's stainless steel and brass. And there's no way that thing is ever going to be breaking, I don't think. Touch wood. Okay, so I've got my 2 lengths of wire already cut, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut. And somebody suggested the other day, cut from the thingy end. What's this end? The heel end first, because if you do, then if you get it wrong, you can reuse this one later on. So there we have it. And I'm just going to put the one I've just cut into the slot for the time being, and that's all we're doing for now. Is just cutting and lining up. Going to do it all the way up to the end, and then to get there I'm going to pull them all off on a strip of tape, which is my kind of, I call it my fret fly paper, which is quite fun, and they all stick there in perfect order for when I'm ready to pull them off one by one and glue them in place and press them in. But I think also what I like to do is once I've got them cut, and then I go over them again to recut them and just trim off, so that I start off with them being as short as possible, but still leaving a little bit of an overhang, because the less I have to cut off afterwards with the file, the beveling file, or the edging and beveling file, the better it is, the quicker it is. Now, one thing I did with my guitar, which, hey sweetie, I'm going to look out for on this guitar, is when you use the bevel thing, I end up hitting the edge here and taking a bit of wood away. Thank you. And I don't want to do that, obviously, on Freddy's guitar. I don't mind doing it on my own, so I'm just going to have to be double vigilant on that. These slots are actually quite wide. What I don't have, I'm going to have to use glue, which I do anyway. I don't have a special tool for widening the tangs they're sitting right in there, so that's quite... Don't tell me I've got to buy another tool. Oh no. I'll stop the video in a minute so I can catch up with Claire. Hold on. I think I'm getting the hang of this thing. Right, so there we are, Freddy. There's your rack of frets. What I can do is, I guess I can just line them all up to the one edge, and just to get a sense of how much we've got to cut off each one, just to keep them as short as possible before we get going. Just makes the whole thing a bit quicker on the other end. If I can chop them off now with a clipper, it's better than trying to grind them down with the edging thing. But yeah, like I said, that edging thing, I've taken a little bit off the headstock before because it's very hard to use it without running all the way up there, but this time I'm going to double protect it with some tape, and in case I do run off all the way up there. And I say these are going to need gluing down because they are the fret tang that's come out of here appears to be wider than the one that's going back in, so we'll just see what we get. I haven't used super glue before in fretting. It worries me because it's such a messy substance, or such a hard to deal with substance. If you use water-based glue like the Titebond, which I usually use, you can constantly clean up as you go, but super glue just seems like, I don't know, it's like unleashing the devil in a bottle. But it does possibly feel like it might be more reliable a substance than this, on a job like this. So who knows? I'm going to just, as I go while I'm here, I'm just going to eyeball these and take a little bit more off each one. The thing is, it needs to be a little bit longer because the biting mechanism, it kind of bends the end a little bit, and so you need to have it just a bit longer so you can take off that bent end part, and then so that when you do shave it with a beveling thing, the edging tool, what you get is the T-shaped back, which if you cut it exactly to the right length with this tool here, and then you don't do any edge trimming, then what you get is this sort of gnarled, bitten part. Anyway, so it's a balance between the two. Just not so much left over that you spend forever doing it, but not so little that you don't benefit from cleaning the edge up. I think that probably may or may not make some sense, but so this is all just sort of gauging it with fingers. Yeah, so I'm gonna obviously I think I'll just go with the Titebond first and see what happens. If there's any problem with this not being strongly fitted, then I might think about the super glue approach. I guess what I've seen before is that when people use super glue, what they tend to do is press the frets in and then add the super glue afterwards, rather than putting it into the hole and into the slot and trying to press, because what you don't want to do is end up squelching super glue out the sides all over the place, because that's just a horrible mess. You will at best be running around with your debonding goo, which is pretty toxic itself, and in my experience hasn't always cleaned up as well as I'd like. Or you'd be thinking about trying to sand down the wood again between the frets, which as soon as you're sanding down between the frets as opposed to in one piece, it starts to really show up that you're doing remedial sanding. There's nothing quite like doing the whole thing in a longitudinal fashion with the grain, and then that's the last time you sand it, and then you fit the frets, and then you're away, you're playing. So the last thing I want to do is try and clean up by sanding in between frets. Sometimes you do that on a guitar where you're not going to refret it, and you have no access to the whole fingerboard to do in the with the grain fashion. but it's not what you want. Now I've got a load of little bits of metal now floating about here, which I'm going to pick up by hand as much as I can, because what I don't want is any of this sitting there to get in the way of paintwork or anything later on. So if you're not sure you've got it all out by hand, put your hoover on it and get rid of it all. I'm just feeling my way. I don't want any scratches or little flies. Thank you. Okay, get that out of the way. So there we have it. Frets cut to shape, or cut to size roughly. So one thing I like to do then is to keep them all safe and in order. I get myself, where are you? Oh, there you are. Piece of ordinary gaffer tape, and I just lay it right the way down the centre of the guitar like this, and press the frets onto it. And with these, they're so loosely fitting that the whole lot will come off in one nice pile. And if you want, you can just sort of press them in like that. Not just judging by how that went, I think I probably, that one will go there, will it? Could be right, there's probably enough not to worry about that, but anyway, should have done it more like that, pressing in the middle. So there's the set of frets ready to go, and I can hang them up somewhere where they're accessible, and I'm going to just tack them in place so that I can just pull these off whenever I want them, and then come back to them. So it's a nice military style operation I've got here next, which is to get the fretting machine going. Now these, because they need glue, they will need glue. I think I'm going to try and be disciplined enough to glue and clamp, which means I need my clamps standing by wherever they live. Right, two here. One-handed clamps. These Irwin clamps, though, they are great. I couldn't live without them. Just going to have them standing by, and the way I'm going to clamp this is to use the neck caul. Depends, it's slightly different. Sometimes I'm going to, well, either which way, I'm going to use a 7.25 block. When I'm at this end, I'm going to turn it up that way, put a piece of support in, and clamp this part down, and I'll clamp that little section on their own. When I'm moving from there to there, I'll do it in two clamps, and I'll clamp that section with the neck caul that way, and then this section with the neck caul that way, and that'll be 3 stages. So just for my own peace of mind, I like to mark out where the last one I can successfully clamp is, and it tends to be this one. So I'm going to put a bit of tape on my start and stop points. So I'm going to just put a bit of tape on, and I'm just going to draw an arrow pointing to the start of one set. So one set starts there, and I use the whole set, as many as I can get in comfortably on that, and it ends there just before the fret marker. So I point an arrow to there, that's my middle rack, and then I don't need to obviously mark the other ends because I know what the other ends or the other set are. So it's 3 sections, and I'm going to clamp and probably leave about an hour for each set, or a couple of hours for each set. So at this point I will go off into doing other things mode as well. So if you're oh great, I've done that thing where it pulls the rubber out. Damn. Right, this is going to create a bit of a problem. Needle nose pliers. Come on, no, that's too short. I've allowed the thing to dry out, which is a real pain. So I haven't now got a means of pulling this rubber out, and this is, it's not critical, but it's kind of useful to have a thingy, what's it called, syringe. So I'm going to place my water here. Sorry about this, it's a bit too close to the camera for safety, and this is, if those of you who like to get all sleepy with some nice watery sounds, there you have them. So this is my wet cloth, always a vital tool in this fretting process, because if you're working with glue, any kind of glue, but if it's wood glue, you want water, plenty of water around to get to wipe the glue up as you're going along. Now I've also put some warm water in there because I want to try, I've got to try somehow to get this rubber bung out of here, and currently there is no means. I can't go down the end of the syringe because it's curved. The only way is if I could magically push this so hard that it fitted back in. Maybe with a bit of turning it will go in, but I doubt it. It would be great if it did, but it's just not going to happen. So all it's doing is compressing it, so I need a hook of some sort to get this out. This might do it, possibly, but I'll need a pair of pliers too. It's one of those things I keep forgetting, and I use the same one. It's probably a really good idea to have a second syringe knocking about. That won't work, so for the sake of this job I'm going to make a shorter Allen device, because I need to use it as a hook. Honestly, shortened, turned into a hook. Lo and behold, I can probably now get some sort of purchase on here, maybe, but not much. Is it still too wide to go in? Sort of bringing it out a bit. Yep. Slowly but surely. It's like brute force is bending this as well. But I've got quite a few of these Allen keys, so I'm going to write this one off. Pulling, and it's coming out very slowly. It's tearing it a little bit as well, which is not ideal. I'm going to try now with the needle nose pliers. Can I get a bite on it? No. Can I get it down the side? Unlikely. Okay, I'm going to try bending this end a tiny bit upwards without breaking loads of things. I'm trying to make a little upwards hook, which I have succeeded in doing. Here it goes. This is very, very slow. Actually, it's not working, it's too bent. Oh, sorry about this, boring stuff. But that's the pain in the backside. I've had some, I don't even suppose some oil in there would do it. It might help. WD-40 I suppose, but then I'd have to wash it out thoroughly, but then that's probably better than struggling to get it out. There we go. That'll make a nasty mess. Let's see if it goes down the side a bit. Anyway, so you see it happening live, struggling to innovate and get things working. I don't need to force you to sit through this because I don't really need a syringe, but I like it. It's taking chunks out of the rubber piece now. Come on. There we have it. Right, let's put that on some tissue. Eyeballs where the thing has gone. On the floor. Right, now I've got that. Drop that in there, give it a wash. Let's clean that up, or not clean it up. Maybe just leave it. Leave this thing still a little bit slippery, which is probably good. Hurrah! Now it's got a piece of rubber caught in the end. Let's get this to blow out. I couldn't believe it. I've actually now got a piece of rubber stuck down the side, down the nozzle, because I've pulled off rubber. So now I'm going to use my faithful welding nozzle cleaners. Oh yeah, that's why you've got them. Yes. Tap that out, blow it out, push it out. Oh my god. So you've seen it here. The struggles to use a syringe with some tight bond. Right, hopefully if I can just tip these in here, I can get the bits out without them going down through the nozzle. Hurrah, hurrah. Right, let's clear out these things I no longer need. Let's give that a wipe down because we don't really want that soaked to the skin. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are now back on track. Normal service has been resumed. Sorry for that. Right, so just to get this going, I've got my wet cloths here. I am now going to get my pressing thing into action, and I'm going to go with two of these cauls or bits or whatever you want to call them. I've got a 6 here, which will be the first press, and then I've got a 7.25, which will be the second. I've got a bit of plastic for mopping up that stuff that's called glue. So I'm going to put in my 6 first and struggle to find where the little grub screw is. There it is. I always meant to tap this thing, but I just did it with some tape and it works perfectly well. Right, so here we have it. What we're going to do, we're going to do the heel end first, which means that is the not so easy to clamp end, but hey, what the hell, let's do it. They're all close together. Okay, so the first thing is, now I'm going to mix a bit of this glue with some WD-40, which hopefully won't be so much that it creates a bizarre reaction. We've still got a little bit of goo in there, which I'm not sure how I'm going to get out. I don't want these little bits of rubber going through the system, but they're going to have to go through the system. Right, so there's my first bit, and I'm just going to put it on its side because I want the WD-40 out, but I also I want to be able to use it, but I want the air bubbles to go as well. So then I'm pushing up, let it settle obviously, and out comes the air, a bit like being in hospital. Out comes the air, and then out comes a bit of goo and rubbish, and that's all the WD. And then I just pull back on the thing and keep it from squirting everywhere. So what am I doing? I am going to line up, press in, I should say, a whole load of frets all the way up. And I don't need the water here for a minute, so I'll put it over there. I'm going to press in these frets all the way up on this section, all the way up to the mark, up to and not including the mark, so from there to there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 frets. It's going to be my first run, and then I'm going to clamp them off. Okay, so here's what I do, and let's bring this closer so you can hopefully get a good look. So I might be moving this left, right and centre as we go. So the first thing is squirt. In goes the glue. Now I have to say, if this doesn't work, and if these frets just, for example, just jump straight out, and then I will know that the glue and the width of the tang isn't going to be enough, and then I have to reconsider. But let's see. Hopefully we'll see how it goes. I've never had a problem before yet, so I'm using this to squirt glue into and around the what do you call it, slot, and we've cleaned it out before with the thing being, what did we clean it out with? The air blower. Okay, so the next thing I do is I'm just going to make sure this glue goes in to these slots. So it's just a case of just running it along and making sure it goes in. It probably does anyway, but just pulling it through and dropping it in. And of course that's a big mess at the moment, and we're going to tidy it up shortly, because we don't need tons of goo everywhere. But on this case, I'm going to, normally what I do is I sort of scrape all this off first and just leave a tiny bit of glue in the slot. But this one, I think I'm going to want some glue under the crown as well, sort of between the crown and the wood. So in order to get that, instead of just wiping it all off now, it may be that I put the frets in as they come. Oops. And then press them in by hand and then take away the excess, which feels a bit of a funny way to do it for me, because there's going to be glue everywhere and it's all trying to dry even as we go. But let's see what happens. We can always start again if it doesn't work. So I'm trying to do something a little bit different here. Now, and then I'm going to press all of these in with the 6. Shoot, there goes one on the floor. Notice how I kept that child friendly. Good old American style expletive. Shoot! Right. 2 more. So I'm kind of racing against the clock as far as the glue goes, right? So the glue in the slots is fine, but obviously I've got glue on the fingerboard. And the next thing you know, when I put this under here, in fact I'm going to use an extra piece of wood. When I put this under here, I'm going to get glue squirting everywhere. But then I'm going to quickly get myself into wiping it up mode. Now that you can't see, but now you can. So first of all, I've got, probably needs a little bit of support at this end, maybe. Okay, so my job here is to get this all held in place. It's not perfect, it's all a bit held in place, but I've got the fret in order. Press it in, it squishes down, loads of goo everywhere. Next one, presses in, pull it out, let it move it along, same again. So these are going in without any need, there's no real resistance to these, they're just falling straight into place. But we'll clean up and then we'll see how well they've gone. What I can do when I'm here is, if I want a bit more leverage, I can just drop this bar down a bit more and give it an extra pull. So quite good to have a bit of extra leftover space, except when it hits the damn thing. So I want that pull, but I don't want quite that much dangling down. But I do need a little bit. I can get an extra bit of leverage on it. That's it. Okay, so I probably should have set that up first. Okay, so they're all in, right? Now, what I know is I've got quite a bit of glue on there, so I want to clean that off. There's no reason to carry that through to the next bit. I've also got loads on here, so my next task is to get the wet tea towel and start taking this off en masse. And it's just starting to solidify anyway, but this is why this needs to be wet. And on you go, clearing it up. And it is a matter of cleaning it up and keeping it wet or moist from there onwards. Okay, so while it's moist here, it's going to stay moist and it won't dry into that annoying film. That means you might have to re-sand to get rid of. So it's just keeping it moist that's the important bit. And then of course there's some leftover at the edge here. Sorry if you can't see this. I'm cleaning the excess glue as it comes out at the edges on both sides, quite a bit of it. It's quite tricky because the cut fret ends grab at the cloth always, and it's always trying to yank it and pull the frets up, so you just got to be careful that doesn't happen. Okay, so while that's moist, I'm going to change over to my actual 7.25. I started with the 6, now I'm going to go to the 7.25, and what I'm going to do now is aim to give it a good firm press into place. Again, I don't want to overdo it. I found the hard way not so long ago that on some guitars where there's clear lacquer, pressing too hard under the fretting part of things can split the lacquer a little bit, and that's a pain. You don't want to be doing that. This is not a problem because there's no lacquer to speak of at this end. So I'm just giving each one of these a good push into place. There's a little bit more glue bleeding out. It's hard to keep all these bits working in the same direction, so it's just a matter of readjusting as you go through. I'm going to clamp them anyway, so that's going to add some more downforce into it. Sorry, I sound like a Formula 1. It's going to add some more clamping force, which will hold them in place. So right now, it's just making sure that they follow the right radius, and I'm sort of doing it all balanced. One hand doing one thing, the other doing the other. Okay, so just right now, put my syringe out of the way. We come back with the wet cloth, which is why it's also good to have a bowl of water standing by, because you may well need to dip your cloth in it. And I'm using a thumbnail to go down the side of each fret, get it as clean as possible before I clamp it, because once I clamp it, whatever's on the fingerboard is going to dry in situ, and it probably won't be, even if it's a little bit, you know, you get away with it not looking too bad, but I don't want excess glue squeezing out and running everywhere, or sitting on there from before if I can help it. And again, I will slightly sand down the edge. It will probably, when you come to the edging file, you tend to probably take a little bit of the layer of lacquer off the very edge of the fingerboard here, and sometimes I like to paint some more on, or put some more on. But right now, if you get a bit of glue that's built up there, then you'll probably remove it later, is what I'm saying. Okay, so now we've got, where's my piece of foam? Now we've now got a set of frets that I'm now going to clamp on with my 7.5 radius block. Now, a lot of people have said to me in the past, aren't you worried that this that's falling between two frets, that's why it's doing that. They say, aren't you worried that this is putting dents into your block, which will affect the way it works when you come to re-radius a neck in the future? And yes, it does put little dents in there, but because you use the block in a longitudinal fashion, my experience is that it doesn't stop it working, you know, later on. So turns this around with the other hand, so it gets one-handed file ready, dials it in right to the edge of our fretted area, bites onto it, gets second clamp, opens it up enough, yes, gets ready, bites, nice bite into the next piece. Okay, and that's pressing down on, it's causing a little bit of curvature because I've got this foam insert here just holding us in place, and I can possibly wiggle that out because it doesn't really need that so much. Let me just take the pressure off it. That's probably inducing a bit more bend than we actually need. It just needs a tiny little bit to keep us from going anywhere. In fact, it doesn't even need it. Sorry, that's my mistake. We're on a flat piece of heel, so we don't need it. I haven't extended beyond the heel. Okay, so pick that up in a minute. So let's just look what we've got. We've got the 7.25 radius block clamping the first 8 frets, and there's a little bit of glue coming outside, but I say we'll lose that when we chamfer it or bevel it off. Everything's in place, everything's pressed down nicely. Yeah, now put it off to one side and leave it for a while. Put it over there. hang it up on the seat. What I'll do while we're leaving that dry for an hour or so, I'll go off camera. This is just a bit fiddly. I'll go off camera and I'm going to just do a bit of farting about with filling in the whatever that thing is called, shielding, you know, the Faraday cage shielding. I'll put my rag back into the water for the next bit. I'm going to dangle my syringe in the water too, so that it stays soft and it doesn't clag up. I'll put this out of the way. Yeah, just get onto some body style things, and this is just kind of getting things tidied up as much as possible before ordering more parts and getting that. One of the things I'll probably do now while I've got the glue going is probably put some glue into here just to try and hold it, give it a bit of extra strength. There may well be that, I mean, this has originally had holes for an 11 hole pickguard, and we're going to get another 11 hole, but whether or not those holes now will match up again is anybody's guess. So it may be a case of it might be a really smart move to fill these holes now, ready for getting a new pickguard in, because if I would have put, I haven't got that many spare, but if I would have put the one from my guitar on here, I bet you the holes wouldn't line up exactly. So just for cosmetic sake, it may be just a good idea to fill these anyway, partly because I think that the holes in here are worn out and some of them have been filled with different things, so we can fill them with little bits of wood, the old toothpick and glue trick. Okay, so I'll see you for the next rack of frets. Meanwhile, I'll be pottering, is the word. Alright, see you in a bit. And we're back. Oh, sorry. Right, time to unclamp our first lot. There we have it. First lot unclamped. Quick visual inspection. How do they seem? They look pretty damn good to me. I'm pleased with that. They are well in place. The only issue is, of course, whether they stick. They're stuck down nicely or not. But hey, I think it's good. It's very good. So you can see that's a nice result. So the next bit, before I go and take a break, is to do the next lot, and they run from here to here. So it's a matter of getting the old pieces of kit back out, the wet things. This water's gone cold now. By the way, while I was waiting for that to set, or waiting for the period of time for clamping, I've done a couple of other things. I have shielded the guitar on top of the original shielding. Freddy says that, mentioned in a message that it was somebody had originally put in some fabric shielding to try and stop the guitar buzzing, but didn't. And it may well have been the fact that it wasn't grounded properly anyway. So I've done that. I've also filled the tremolo holes. We may still find that they're in exactly the same place. Well, that would be great, but they'll just go in on top of these and fill. And I filled it actually with a combination of no more nails and wood. But that'll just sit there for a week or so before we go anywhere near doing anything to it. But I suspect that we'll need to drill new holes for the scratch plate, which is absolutely fine. But the most important thing is getting the right, getting the scratch plate to fit right. It doesn't really matter what the holes look like underneath the surface or where they are or how many of them have been filled. It just means you really want them to, you want the plate to fit, because that's the bit you see. So rather than keep trying to get the old ones, I'm just going to put something here so I know where I'm at. Rather than try and stick with the old scratch plate, I would much prefer to make way for a new one, because the new one will be flat. The worst thing when you have a scratch plate is when it's buckled. It's horrible, and that's what we had here originally. We got glue everywhere. don't worry about this, we'll clean it up. Horrible mess sometimes. Can't really, it's hard to go put it on without getting it everywhere, so we start off expecting it's going to go everywhere till we get to the end, and we can take the pressure off, put it back in the water for the time being. Okay, so I'm going to use the same approach as before. I'm going to leave it build up some glue on the surface of the wood as well, because we want to use that to hopefully stick down the crown of the fret. Just going to make sure it goes into all the holes, or the slots as they're commonly known in guitar world. Just keep my brain about me. We'll have lots left over to wipe off in a minute, but that's fine. Goo. Could have maybe wetted the fingerboard at this point, but we'll get to it quick enough. Okay, so I'm now going to come backwards on my frets. That doesn't even look like it's sitting correctly. Let's try that again. We got some owls out here shouting away again tonight. How lucky we are in this part of the West Country, blessed with wildlife. We've got Morris down there. Speaking of wildlife, sorry Morris. Morris is down there enjoying himself, warming himself by the fire, by the heater. Which is funny because he keeps coming in, letting all the warm air out, and then installing himself next to the heater. So he's costing me a pretty penny at the moment. Now that's just popped out, so let's get that. Oh, get that back in. Come on. My hands are getting a bit messy now. As you can see, the whole thing is becoming a bit of a glue bath. Still. Sticking to the principle. Alright. I have become a complete klutz at the moment. For some reason I'm dropping everything. That's all I can do to stop myself calling myself lots of nasty names, which isn't a very nice thing to do. But anyway, while I was waiting for the frets to set, I have been doing a couple of things. I've cleaned all the tuners, given them a bit of an auto sole polish up. Sorry, noise, etc. Cleaned the tuners up. I've also, what have I done? Yeah, I've done the shielding. So, and I filled the holes. So quite a bit of little jobs ongoing in the background. And this, I think I'll leave this lot of frets until, well, I was going to say until the morning, but it's kind of nice time-wise, or using time more effectively. It sort of makes sense to me to be able to leave the last set overnight. That makes a bit more sense. So I may put these in, clamp them, take a break, and then come back out very much later. Excuse me. I'm just trying to get you somewhere where you can see everything really well. Close up. Ooh, using the new close up function. Right, I've got the wet cloth and I've got one that I forgot to squeeze in. Sorry. Back we go. Bear with me a minute. Can't believe I forgot to squeeze that in. In you go. Thank you. Right, so now comes the, let's quickly wipe this off. Filthy mess at the moment. The more liquid we've got, or the more moisture I'm putting on now, the better, just to keep everything from setting, which means we don't get film of glue on everything. Just trying to set. The thinner it is, the quicker it will set, of course, or the quicker it will dry. So as soon as I'm wetting the surface off, I've got to go back over it again to make sure no glue is sitting on the surface drying. It's a, you get used to it as a technique. course, it doesn't really matter about the glue being on top of the fret at this point in time, because I'm going to I'm going to fret level anyway, which is something you have to do when you put new frets in. I've probably bored you, those of you who've watched any of my other refrettings, but despite what you think, when you put new frets in, they're almost never going to be level to begin with, so there's almost always got to be some fret leveling that goes on. So we're going to get all these frets in today, take them off, take the clamp off tomorrow, and then we'll need to trim them, which will be a matter of using that block with the file on the edge of it. So we trim them right flush to the edge of the neck, and then once they're flush to the edge of the neck, then we change over to use a different part of the file to bevel them into a 40 degree or 35 degree or whatever it is angle, so we put a nice angle on them. And once we've done that, then we've still got, once all the frets are done and have been softened off and feel nice, then we've still got to level them, and that's where I will probably do, with the neck off like this, I'll probably do a first broad fret leveling, which is I'll probably use the 7.25 radius block as a fret leveler, which is kind of perfectly made for doing that, but I'll only do it as a sort of a broad or a crude leveling, and then what I'll do is, once we've got the neck on and got some strings on it, then I will do another precision fine-tuning fret leveling using the banana file, and because we'll be doing it then with the neck strung, or the guitar strung, and the neck under compression, then it will be a much more accurate sort of final leveling. So I always expect to do 2 when refretting the guitar. So you can see I'm just doing all this little tidying up of any excess glue that I've got floating about before. Once I've cleaned that up, then I'm in a position to clamp this part of the neck for the next couple of hours. And again, now this time I'm going to use the neck caul that way up, and I'm going to put the block on there. Let's get you out of the way so you can probably see a bit better. And it always sort of twists the neck, usually twists the neck around a little bit once you put the clamp on, but we'll see. So clamp on, clamp open, clamp down, tighten up, that's pretty good. Next clamp, clamp open, clamp in, clamp close, right. Put it under a bit of pressure. Okay, so there we have it. The next part of the neck, beautifully clamped, ready for a couple of hours break, where I can do other things with other guitars. In fact, I may end up, I'm not doing anything with this one because this is waiting for some new pickups to come, so that's going to kind of stay there. But do you know what I forgot to do? That was, anyone spot what I forgot to do? Wow, I forgot to press all the frets in with a 7.25. Luckily that's what this is doing, so I'm going to put a little bit more pressure on this one, just for the hell of it, since I forgot to do it with the, you didn't tell me, you just let me carry on and do it. Anyway, not a problem, it's been squeezed on with an over radiused caul, C-A-U-L, so it's still on. But there you go. Just shows that not paying attention can do for you. But they'll be fine because they're all on nicely anyway. And the other ones look pretty good. It's nice fine, or relatively fine looking medium fret wire. And again, it can just tiny run down the edge here with the blade. Just take away any bits of glue sticking out. Fine, tiny detail really. looking at the edges of this, there really isn't any space for putting super glue underneath. Sometimes people manage to wick a bit of ultra runny super glue under these. I'll see if there's any room once we've cut them flush, but otherwise we'll just trust that, or see how well this sits in place. Okay, so I'm going to call a halt to that right now, do some other things, and we'll see you for probably in the morning. I won't bother, you've seen these first lot, so I won't show you through the final few frets later on tonight. I'll just get those done, and then tomorrow we'll come back to this when I take off the clamp and we go into the trimming part of the process. All right, see you a little later. Oh, we're away again. Well, straight out of the blocks, ladies and gentlemen. The frets, glued, clamped and glued. Clamped and glued sounds like a place. All right, so there we have it. Obviously, a little bit of glue residue there, which we'll clean off. We'll wash that off. But what I really want to do now, I want to fall over things. I want to take off the edges of things. I don't want to use this tool. This tool is effective. Okay, it does the edging on the guitar pretty well. Excuse me. But it kind of pushes things sideways, which I don't like the thought of. So I'd much rather push downwards to get rid of as much as I possibly can first of all. So I tend to go down with this device here, and I just take off everything that's just about the snippable length. And it's not, you can't get too close in, unfortunately, because of the way the heads on these things are built, but you can get some of it away. And I suppose the good thing is it's a bit better than trying to do it with the bevel thing or the edging thing. So get as much off as I possibly can. It gets a bit harder when they're very close together. Like I say, often can't get much of it off at all. So the next thing I'll do is to go at it with the files. Quite difficult to get in that close, but there we are, about as good as we'll get. Okay, so this could get a bit annoyingly noisy after a while. Well, obviously the game now is to get rid of as much of the metal as I can, just by doing it downwards really. And this file's pretty good for that. So I don't know if you can, or you can probably see in this close-up, you can see that it's showing a nice cross-section now. So it's in taking away the sort of the gnarled, curled bit, you get a much cleaner cross-section on the fret. So it's a bit of this to do, and I'm going to be careful with it because obviously I don't want to end up scraping the fingerboard, so it's a little bit touchy-feely, and probably best done with some audio book on in the background and not you guys having to listen all the way through it. But anyway, there's nothing much more to it than taking the bulk of this off, and then I'll go down the edge with, first of all, the square section. What I will do as well is I'll mask off here and here to make sure I don't crash into the end of it, because this little thing here is deadly. If you go off the end excuse me, if you go off the end too far, for example this way, you'll ram it straight into that bit there, so it's very difficult to avoid it. You have to be very, very careful to avoid it, I should say. So once I've shortened these off a bit, then I'll go down with that edging file And once I've done that, and I'm happy that I've got it down flush with the edge of the fingerboard, then what I'll do is I'll switch to the angled bevel to give myself a 30-40 degree angle. My experience has always been that somewhere in all of this you're almost certain to scuff or wire away some of the lacquer on the edge of this fingerboard, so chances are I may need to touch up the fingerboard with a bit of extra lacquer at the end. Quite often end up doing that. Or if it's not much that's been scuffed, then you can polish that out fairly easily as well. So we'll see. We'll see. It's I have to say it's virtually impossible to sand this, or sorry, to file this smooth to the edge of the fingerboard without touching the lacquer. I don't think there's any physical way you could possibly even do that. Otherwise you just have frets that are overhanging. If you stop and avoid scuffing any lacquer at all, you will inevitably have to leave overhanging frets, which is not what we want, because they will straight away feel sharp and uncomfortable to the hand. So this is quite an easy first step. So I think within an hour or so I'll have all of these nicely cut short, rounded off as much as possible, using a couple of tools, one of which will be this specialist concave fret end file from StewMac. Just a very good tool for slightly rounding off these, the very sharp edges here on these arch shaped fret ends. But you know, from my perspective, pushing this way with the file feels much better than sort of dragging the whole fret sideways using the block file. I mean, we have to do a bit of that, but I'd rather that was left to, we've got no choice. So as we get closer together, frets up here, pretty much do two at once. I'll just get to the end of these and then I'll switch you off, and we'll come back when it's all miraculously done. Because who knows, I might find the Archers or something on radio. Okay, so that's the first preparatory edging. I could carry on a bit more. The only danger about doing that, as I found, is it's quite easy at this level to slip over sideways with a file, and before you know it, you're hitting the, oh sorry, I've left my phone on bleep. It's a bit too easy to end up hitting the edge of the thing. Sorry, hang on. Hit it. Too easy to hit the edge of the fingerboard is what I'm trying to say. Okay, well look, I'm going to stop there, and I'll come back when this is done and talk to you then. See you in a little bit. Well, here we are again, and things going nicely. Just going to show you. At the moment I'm just reclamping. I'm clamping the nut back on. I've put a shim under it because I want to raise it up slightly, because we've got new frets on, and you can see them here. They're looking nice, all softened off. I have oiled the board a little bit now, just because it's going to sit here for a week or so before I get the whole of the guitar back together, ready for its fret leveling, final fret leveling. So I didn't want it to sit there looking dry for a week, so I've oiled it. So you can see how nice it looks now. This is the refurbished neck really. I've put the tuners back in, they've been polished up. I can't get all of the gunk off all of them. I can probably try a bit more with some cotton buds somewhere, but they're looking a lot nicer, and they've cleaned up quite well. So I'm quite happy. It hasn't really taken much off the edge of the fingerboard in doing this, so I'm not going to add any further lacquer to it. These things always flake a little bit the older they get anyway, so it's not uncommon for them to be a little bit flaky around the edges, but this is really nice so far. I've done a nice job on the smoothness of this, and of course once we've done the final fret leveling, which by the way it's all pretty level as it is, but once we put it under pressure, strung it, and then done the strung fret leveling, then I can also just kind of go down the edges and smooth any final things off with sandpaper. It's the last little bit in the process. So I've just basically clamped the nut in place with this rubber covered block. It just adds a little bit of downward pressure, which is fine. Let's see what it's done. Should be all right. There we are. I'm always nervous about nuts because there's so much chance of super glue getting everywhere. A little bit had come out on there, and I've cleaned it mostly off. Luckily it came off onto oiled fingerboard anyway, so it didn't really stick, but that's got a little shim in there, and I'm judging by how it sits at the moment, that's going to give us plenty of clearance to cut down again, and also I can just soften it off with a slight reshape when all is done, which will clean it up a little bit, but we don't really want to clean it too much because that it's quite a nice vintage colour to it. So everything there has gone back on. I'm really happy with this. Freddy, this is your new neck, ready for a few more years of playing. What I will do later in the week, or when I come back to it next week, I'm going to mask off the neck. Am I going to mask it off? No, I'm not going to do that until I put it back on the guitar, string it up. So there's a while off yet. So I'm going to put this somewhere nicely out of the way, nice and safe. But yeah, looking good. A nice little fret job there, and it will be very, very soft edged. Feel nice to play. It will already feel nice to play, but it's kind of reconditioned, so like it hasn't felt for a long time. So I can hang that up there happily, roughly out of the way, and get on doing other things. I'll also put this somewhere safe for the time being. I'm not going to do anything with these. Sorry, you can't see. I'm not going to do anything with these filled holes. What I'll do is when I get the new scratch plate, I'm going to obviously put the neck on, place it there. I've super glued this bridge here. It's got a crack on either end, but it's not the end of the world. It's not going to go anywhere. It's just, it won't take many more knocks this way. But yeah, I'll put the pick guard on. I'm going to then mark the new holes. Like I said, I don't mind leaving lots of filled holes underneath there, because what's really more important than anything is that we get a pick guard that sits flat onto the surface of the guitar, and it doesn't matter if there's a few shell holes underneath there. It's really most important that we get it to work. These holes here are filled with a little mixture of toothpick wood and some no more nails, so hopefully they will provide a good foundation point, or a good bite point for this for the new pickguard screws. And I've got some new ones coming in to go on there, and they're going to be chrome all the way around. So we've got a black, white, black scratch plate like on mine, followed by chrome screws. Then we've got the wiring kit coming. So probably the only thing I've got left to tweak at the moment in Freddy's guitar is this. Have a closer look at the pickups here. I'm not going to take anything off until I get the new one, because I prefer to do a sort of kind of, I don't know what we call it, just a copy across. But what we've got here, we've got the earth bridge, the bridge earth there. Let me just, by the way, put this away. We've got bridge earth, bridge ground, I should say. Bridge ground, which is actually in this case going to the a little lug at the bottom of the switch, and this is a 5-way switch. It's very old looking. And then we've got the jack socket output, which I'll probably replace with a new one anyway. And then we've got a kind of flat cap on top of here, which, who knows, after all of these years may well have worn out anyway. Just looking at the wiring here, we've got, it's interesting, what have we got? Okay, we've got very delicate wiring. The bridge pickup here doesn't have, the wiring doesn't come out of the normal hole, so it's coming directly out. Thanks, Morris. That's all the graphite. Duh. Anyway, it wasn't much. Yeah, so they're slightly different. The wiring's coming out here, out through the holes. They're waxed, and this one is as well. But the wiring doesn't come out there, and I'm just concerned that that wiring has broken under here. So I'm going to have a very close look at this. It may be part of your problem, or problem. I don't know if the bridge pickup worked or not, Freddy, but it looks a little bit broken to me. So I'm going to do a couple of little things going here, one of which will be my Grandpappy reading glasses, and the other one will be my scrutineer's microscope thing. Oh lordy, what a mess. Very hard to see. There's a broken piece of wire, but there is also a connection as well. So, well, all I can do is replace them and try them out. If they don't work, then we're going to be looking for a replacement, which will bust the budget, unfortunately. But you know, to make a Strat like this play, there still are some pretty good, not that expensive pickups we could be using for this. So the other ones have got a single tidy piece of wire, which is so delicate anyway, from the solder blob back underneath. So the wire comes from the solder blob through, doubles back. On this one it doesn't, so it's been sort of messed about. But according to this, according to this what? According to this, there is still a connection that runs from the underside round and makes contact with those lugs. So maybe it's okay. Got to be very delicate with it. But the rest of it will just be a straightforward Strat setup. That's loose anyway, so that would have been spinning happily. I always say, suspect anything that's loose if you're going to have any problems at all. I'll pull these knobs off when the time comes. But yeah, so just a sort of quick heads up on this. I can see that I'm going to have to be very careful getting these off and making sure that little piece of wire, nothing worse happens to it. Yeah, I just think it's been tweaked previously by somebody, because they've obviously had a problem with it. But all told, it should be workable. Okay. And as I say, right now I have no idea about the quality of these units, and I don't really care about them. We've bought a replacement whole kit which does away with too much of the worry, so we can pretty much just take these lock, stock and barrel and replace them onto the new 5-way switch, which should be a pretty similar unit. So there we go. That's going to just sit there now for a week or so, or maybe not much more than a week. I've got a busy week ahead, so it won't be done during the week. But there we are. So thank you for watching the bits that I took you through on this. With regards to this, just to recap, I didn't show it to you obviously, but what I did was I hand shortened all of the frets as far as I could go with my Crimson fret leveling file, but putting it to a different use. Then I then used I've forgotten what the make of this is, but Portuguese guy, good stuff. This one's a little bit I'm not 100% happy. I love all the other tools he does, but this one I struggle to make this one work perfectly well. It's easy to skip with this one, so start with the 90-degree one and just go up and down until I've got a flush with the neck edge of the fingerboard, and then I use the angled one to give it a bevel. And because this surface is flat, both of these surfaces which run up and down the frets are flat, and I think also because that's such a shallow depth, this file, it's very effective, but it all too easily skips over, and I constantly scrape this totally razor sharp edge across the frets, and I've done it again on this one here, so I've got a couple of little chips that I'm going to have to fret level out. It's almost impossible, no matter how many times I've done this. I keep saying I'm going to need to find an alternative to this, even if it had a sort of, I don't know, it just feels like even if it had a slight curve in there that would help it sit on the radius. I know it won't be the exact same radius for every guitar, but the fact that it kind of so easily flips over and scrapes across, because the only way to avoid it is you have to be pressing down really hard, which feels worrying. You don't want to be putting that much pressure on this job. It needs to be quite light, but with the lightness that skip over happens, and sometimes it even happens with the edging, the 90-degree edging. So anyway, I thought I was going to get away with it this time, but nope, yet again I've jumped across and scratched the frets. It's not a problem because I'm leveling them anyway, but I would prefer it didn't do that, and each time it happens I'm basically rethinking what other tool I can use that's going to do the job. But anyway, at least I know what I'm looking for, which is something that probably has a deeper blade on it. Just before I go, one other thing. I've taken this apart, which was quite surprising that I managed to get all the bits off it. They were pretty much welded and rusted in place, but this is a sort of solid steel block, and it's a nice looking unit. I have no idea where it's from. But it is just slightly shorter than the one that's on my JV Squier, and I assumed, because the saddles on Freddy's guitar were jammed flat against the back, a bit like that, and the springs had all been cut down, I assumed, probably with good reason, that the owner had, in order to get intonation out of it, had to remove the spring on this one and cut the other ones down, which suggested to me that this the bridge itself was too far forward, meaning that this back heel bit was too far forward. Now I've measured it and it's about 38.5 millimeters, and there are others, well sorry, mine is at least 40, pretty much on 40 millimeters, so there's 1.5 millimeters difference on my bridge and this one, and the replacement one I've got is a little bit larger than this one, only a tiny bit, but I want to obviously give us the best chance we can of intonating properly without having to kind of shove this to the back end. Also, these are unserviceable, they're going in the bin. They've been worn down, but actually I think more than that, they've been filed down, and I think they may have been filed down just for comfort's sake. So what I might do is get some ultra short grub screws, because I've done that on mine and it gives you a really nice thing. You don't get your palm, when palm muting, it doesn't hurt your hands. I don't know if I've got a whole set of those currently, but I can always get off and order those. So believe it or not, for the sake of 1.5 millimeters, I think I will not use this, no matter how nice and chunky it is. The other one I'm getting, by the way, also has a full weight block. It's not quite as sexy looking as that, but I just want to give it the best possible chance with that extra 1.5 millimeters. Beyond that, there's nothing really untoward. There's a couple of things like there's a bent tremolo plate screw there, Morris, bent trem screw there, but these, actually I am going to chuck these away now, these saddles, because they would be unusable by any standards. Of course the all-important plate will go back on, and then the only thing I'm going to do a little bit of double checking on will be the seeing whether I need to just fill the strap screw holes. Come on, Morris, stop headbutting that. Yeah, the strap screw holes, because again, it's one of those things, it's not that important what way we manage to hold that thing on. What's important is that thing holds on. You cannot. Are we still working? Yeah, we're working. Cannot afford to have the straps come out at any point. So I would rather drill and fill with a good, well, fill with some no more nails in at the same time, because the issue here is, will you want to take it out again? Yes, you might want to take it out and put in a strap lock, but it came with the standard one, but I want them to fit rather than to be wobbly the way they were. So I'll probably add a bit of no more nails into that. This didn't come with a back plate, so I don't have a spare black back plate. If I can find one cheaply enough, I will. It's a staggered one, but even here they haven't matched up properly in the past, and there's a few extra holes, so we might need to fill those as well. But otherwise, to be honest, everything's going swimmingly, so I'm very optimistic about the outcome for this guitar, which, you know, as you can probably tell, for me it's really my, yes Morris, it's my forte, no, my pleasure to do such as this. I could happily refret and refurbish JV Squiers. I don't claim to be somebody who does it to you know, showroom or luthier standards or whatever. This is about taking a guitar that was on its last legs and making it play for another 30 years, and a guitar that you want to keep and play, not really a guitar necessarily about one you want to sell on and try and make money out of it. Although there's no doubt this is going to be a better guitar after I finished it than it was, even if some of the parts aren't going to be original, but then again they weren't from the outset, so there's no real issue there. And I'm not going to it's not an issue of investing even more money finding replacements, you know, trying to get original parts. They're obviously on this guitar, they were long gone. The pickguard's gone. The original, well, some say USA pickups that came with standard with these JV Squiers, they're gone somewhere, which is a shame, because I think mine are great. They sound really good. But to be honest, with a guitar like this, even if these things were broken, whatever's on here, even if these didn't work, you could put on a half decent set of even a set of Wilkinson single coils with a good wiring kit would make this guitar sound great, and it would play fantastic with a new reconditioned neck anyway. So, you know, it'll feel like a whole new deal. Okay, so that's it for now. I'll probably see you at the end of the week when I get back onto this with some wiring kit and some... Thanks, Morris. That's the annoying bit about Morris. Now he's made me have to take this whole shed apart and find all the little parts that he's kicked down the back there. You saw it here on the We Love Guitars workshop. Okay, yeah, I'll see you next week, by which time I probably will have finished picking up all these pieces. Damn you!